to men out there getting ready to vote for the woman and having some trouble getting up your nerve. Let's look at where that fear comes from right now so you can get rid of it once and for all. So you have, I've picked out about, you know, 5 reasons that you can really look at. Okay, number one, Michael Moore, who put out this incredible movie called Where to Invade Next, which goes around the world looking at all the best things that have happened all over the world, all the best policies, all the countries where people are most happy. And he notices that the women are in leadership in a lot of these countries, and that women's agendas, what they want, are being implemented. And that countries are much happier, people are much happier, cities are happier, because when mama's happy, everybody's happy. No, I think it's that, but it's also that women's minds work holistically and circularly. So the feminine mind literally is firing all at once, right? It's a different way that the feminine mind works. The masculine mind has these compartments and fires up one compartment at a time. But if you can imagine, guys, what it's like when all the brain is firing at once, even when you're washing the dishes, it means that the women are thinking about everybody all the time. And we have to keep kids safe, the job going, the food cooking, our bodies beautiful, our love with our guy flowing, our work empowered, our relationships, learning and growing. I mean, we're like that. So, but where and why? I mean, most men, you know this. You know that the woman is taking care of everybody. You know that she's more selfless usually, and more in tune with all the little minutia of needs of everybody. So where's the fear coming from? Well, here's a number of them. Some of them are kind of funny. One is just like, oh shit, she'll do better than us. A woman president will do better than us, and she'll make fools of us and replace us, and make us look bad for excluding women from power all these years, all these centuries. So there's that there, right? So that's a kind of an obvious one. Then there's this other one where she'll do to us what we did to her. Oh, she'll silence, ignore, banish, condemn, accuse us of being sinful and evil for just being, macho guys. So, but the women, because we're not hierarchical in our essence, we're not going to do to you guys what you've done to us. We don't see the point. We don't see how that helps anybody to be exclusive and try to banish and condemn, and like Baby Dump right now wants to deport more than half the country. I mean, who's he kidding? Every immigrant, we're all immigrants. There's no way to deport. It's like when they were, rounding up Jewish people in, was it Switzerland, where they said put yellow stars on the Jews, and then everybody in the entire country put on yellow stars, so it wasn't able to happen. Well, it's kind of like that with this whole immigrant thing. Who here is not an immigrant who you can't round up and put try to, where is he going to deport people? Who's going to take Americans who've been closing the doors to everybody else? God. Anyway, this is insanity, right? So then there's there is an insanity going on. There's this inexplicable terror. Also goes back to olden times when white men saw their own women and daughters and children, sisters, rounded up as witches whenever they were getting very powerful in leadership and becoming real prophets and healers, like Jesus level type thing, and really wisdom keepers who were totally clairvoyant. So those women being burned at the stake, any man who stood by his sister, mother, wife, was actually burned with her. We don't talk about that, but there was millions of men that were killed along with the women. Those were her brothers, lovers, husbands who stood up for her. They were killed too. So there's this primordial terror of a woman getting into power and what it means to stand with her. And a lot of those men, they thought, well, gee, maybe it's more convenient just to think of her as too dangerous. She should just die, so that he wouldn't admit what was going on, you know? So then there's this thing of the witch hunt thing, and guys are like, well, how can I vote for this woman who, when so much bad stuff's being said about her? It must be true. She must have done something to deserve it. Well, I'll tell you what she did. You know, this woman, Kamala Harris, is for green energy, for one thing. She's for millions of new jobs. So 16 million green energy jobs have already been created by Biden, right? And she's going to add more and more to that. So she is a threat to the coal and the oil and the dirty industry that doesn't want things to change to become clean and green. She's said, I'm not going to do it fast. I'm not going to ban, too fast. I'm not going to ban fracking. I'm going to let all of these businesses transition into new green industry. But those powers that be that have always been the 1% that own most everything and that fund fake news and are in cahoots with Russia, because Russia doesn't want Democrats to win, doesn't want a woman's voice and power and inclusivity to have her say, because women don't put up with cruelty. We don't put up with excluding. Everybody's our children. Everybody's our family. We can't. So it's really beautiful. If you can watch that movie by Michael Moore called Where to Invade Next, you know, at one point he stops the filming, slows it down, and he zooms in on all these different women's faces that he's been interviewing throughout the whole movie, and he just says, see what it's like to look through the eyes of women. Just try it. Try looking for the eyes of this woman and how women see the life and possibility and positivity and the goodness in all and the goodness in everyone and the beautiful dreams that we want to create, co-create, and our love for our men and our love for our children and our love for the earth. See through the eyes of women. So he, last night when I was watching Michael Moore being interviewed, he's feeling overjoyed. He says he's having this sense that there's going to be a tsunami of women voting. Now, guys, can you just please join us? Don't be like this. Don't be afraid, because women don't want to lose our rights. We don't want to lose everything we've worked for, including, civil rights. And we have worked hard for gay rights. Like, it's all connected. All the rights of human beings around you are connected to women having had enough voice and say so that our influence has changed society to be more inclusive. So you don't want to be on the outside of this movement. You don't. You really, take my word for it. You don't want to look back and see that you didn't even bother to vote, to stand up for anybody. Or worse, you sided with a terrorist, a hateful misogynist terrorist who was in every way open about his cruelty, his abuse of women, his abuse of power. So look, it's exciting because Michael Moore is on the verge of tears, right? He has predicted correctly. He predicted correctly when Hillary lost. And we were all like, nobody would possibly vote for a man who says he's proud of grabbing pussy and who's, college ruined people and took all their money and who has all these rape cases against us. And all of us took it for granted. No one would vote for him. But people projected all of this big daddy stuff on him, gave him the benefit of the doubt for simply being male and macho. That's it. And the name Trump, which is a hypnosis. So Michael Moore, on the verge of tears, says, I feel it. The tsunami of women are voting. And actually, huge numbers, what's like 60% of people have already voted in advance, and more than half of that, 70% of the early voting is women. What does that tell you? So can you put aside all these fears about women, all these fears that, that are going to get you back, or they're going to make a fool of you, or do so much better than you that you can't handle it, or like not carry out your agenda for business. Um, Look, this is a shrewd woman coming in. This is a prosecutor. And she's not going to be into the country falling apart, falling down some rabbit hole of goody two shoes where people don't have jobs and money and opportunity. It's the opposite. That's the thing about when women are in charge of more, or like the top dog. Like if you think of all those Native American tribes where the men, the warriors, the chiefs were chosen by the women, the elder women. The council of decisions always went back to the women. Why is that? You know, there's this beautiful way in which the feminine heart doesn't want to be. A lot of times we don't want to have to be on the front lines, on the front. We'd like the men to be listening to us and taking in our input and then doing all that hard work. But this woman, she's got stamina, and she's willing from day one to stand up for people, women and children being abused, and traffickers and drug lords. But she's not excluding you guys. She's in love with her man, and she works beautifully with Biden. They've gotten more done than any presidential team ever in the history of the presidents who we've seen so far. That is huge to really look at, and not take in, food is still expensive, so I'm going to blame her for everything. There is this incremental way in which change happens. If we can just keep the momentum and not going backwards into mayhem of a whole weird GOP agenda to destroy democracy and blame anybody for making changes who are not, in the pocket of the million billionaires, you can be the guy to make a difference. You can let go of those fears, and please do, and join the tears of Michael Moore, because he was saying, look, this is such an unprecedented day. This is an unprecedented, amazing, miraculous moment in time when women are coming in to leadership of this world, of this country, with a whole new view and a whole different agenda than the way the men do things. And it's exciting, and to think in our lifetime to go from, African American people not being allowed to sit in diners and countertops, and women not being allowed to even own their own land, and not being able to have bank accounts, and not being able to vote, and then to come through all of that and into the civil rights movement and an integration of everyone, and now then an African American president, and then now here comes this African American Indian woman who's brilliant and more talented and more cohesive in her thinking about what to do than any president we've ever had, or maybe ever will. This is it, guys. So jump onto the wagon of inclusivity, trust the woman, and look at all the times in your life when you can look back. You go, I wish I had trusted women on that. I wish I had trusted my sister when she told me that. I wish I had trusted my own feminine voice, because you are half feminine, just like I'm half masculine. It's just that we've all given credence to the masculine voice and the masculine logic and linear thinking and the way it's always been and the way we should do things in the patriarchal, hierarchical way of organizing, so that feeling place in you, if you can even just go to the Manhattan nightmare that Baby Dump ran, where he and all these MAGA men just were hatefully disgusting the entire night, instilling fear and faithlessness. And then move over to a Kamala Harris rally, to a Tim Walz rally, to where Michelle Obama and Barack Obama and Alicia Keys and Beyonce and all these incredible speakers are giving you hope and inspiration and joy and loving kindness and grounding and a clear picture of what has to be done and what we're going to do to create a world that is safe from the violence that you're afraid of, safe from too many guns and gun atrocities by simply doing some background checks and taking away, weapons of mass destruction from teenage boys who've been on those little, games all day of bloody fests, and who then can just go buy these machine guns. That you don't want your son to have access to that. No, you don't. You don't want him to ruin his life and the lives of all these other people because he has some insane, suicidal breakdown. You don't want that. It's common sense that the feminine agenda comes in with, and we know that Kamala Harris owns a gun. Maybe she keeps it in her glove compartment. So does Tim Walz. They're both gun toters. They're not saying to take away your right to defend yourself at all. And it's the subtlety, it's the nuance of each thing to take away the extremism, that can't think clearly as to how to navigate everyone's rights, everyone's freedom, everyone's voice being heard. Thank you for being with me, and have courage. Just go ahead, trust the woman for once in your life. Really trust her and go for it. And you will be so glad you did. That's the side of history you can land on right now when our rights, we fought so hard for these rights, guys, just to be human rights, just to be able to vote, just to be able to wear clothes that allow us to work, just to be able to work. Wasn't that long ago, we weren't even allowed to work. We had to sit at home with kids, and we were just like baby maker machines to guys, and it is really, really sad. And if you divorce yourself from women and you're like, oh yeah, those are your issues, abortion, that's your issue, you are so out of touch with life. You are so deluded if you think it's just women's issues, because everything that women are dealing with affects you and affects everybody else and affects anything you would ever care about. You can do this. You can switch over. That's what you're doing. You're switching over. It's not just from the GOP. You're switching over to womankind, to the feminine way of thinking. So this is a big deal. And I do see why you're like hesitant, because you're about to make a life change. If you can support womankind and the kind of thoughts that women have and the things that women, are all about, that means you're going to start supporting your own feminine side. You're going to start supporting the part of you that might want to be more spiritual, more intellectual, more emotional, more humble, more communicative, more into decoration and color and art and how you dress. And, men's liberation is coming. As women really come into the sacred feminine abundance of true feminism, which is not being strong and equal, proving ourselves that way by being like men, but we actually can get respect for being like women as women are. Now that's when the men's revolution happens. Because right now it hasn't fully happened. As long as us women could only get respect by acting like men and saying what men want us to say, and only make money if we do professions that men love to do, and building and science and all these things that traditionally our men are more interested in. Not that there's tons of women interested in science, of course, and building, but in general, it's been like this thing, like we have to prove ourselves our worth by being like men. As we stop doing that, And when we start just being really open, like, hey guys, I don't like the clock. I don't like the calendar. I want some freedom in my life. I don't want to be run by an 8-hour a day work week thing where it's only a good worthy day if I've worked all day. I have other reasons I came to earth. I have other, agendas of what I feel, the meaning of life is, you know? So as the women start to infiltrate the thinking and the politics, and you are going to love it. You're going to love it. But mainly, you're going to get to explore more of your artistic side and your spirit heart side and your love of family and connectedness will become something where you're not allowed, they're not allowed, those big money people, to work you to the grind, where you have not a moment to yourself, no introspection, no body enjoyment besides beer and sex, in order to make up for yet another grinding, grueling day where they completely overworked you and then tempted you with overabundance of money for your overtime hours, as if there's nothing else for you to live for but work and money. That's sick, man. That is the masculine destroying the masculine. So wait till women's agendas come in and they're like, hey, we need everybody paid the same or more for less work because we want the guys home so we can have a lover and we can have a nice big meal in the middle of the day like they do in Italy for 2 hours. Enough room for both the meal and the sex. And we want dads for our kids. We don't want the guy so wasted and so closed down and bitter he can't even be a father on the weekends, much less at night. No. We don't want that anymore. We want you guys to have men's rights. Men's rights. To be more feminine. Okay. Much love, darling. This is a big new day dawning. Let's get with it all together. Let's join hands. Let's join hands.